The queen passed by me, then turned back and said, "Wait, are you that person?" Neon lights flickered above, casting a kaleidoscope of colors onto the metallic streets. Ships of every shape and size hovered overhead, their engines humming in harmony with the chatter of thousands of traders, travelers, and aliens. The air smelled of exotic spices, ionized metal, and the faint tang of sea-like water from distant transport docks. Ilior had been here for only a few days, yet he felt both amazed and overwhelmed. He had traveled across the galaxy to learn, to explore, and to help where he could. Humans were not known for their presence in these crowded hubs. Most aliens regarded them with curiosity, sometimes suspicion. But Ilior had never minded standing out. He paused at a stall selling glowing fruit. A small, four-limbed alien with bright purple skin waved a hand at him. "Human, try this," Ilior smiled politely. "Thanks, but I think I'll pass this time." As he walked away, he noticed the crowd shifting, a ripple moving through the throng as if something extraordinary were approaching. His attention was drawn upward when the hovering lights dimmed slightly, a sign that the security drones were prioritizing someone. Then he saw her, the queen. She walked through the marketplace like she owned it, though she moved with grace and humility at the same time. Her robes shimmered in deep emerald and gold, reflecting light like rippling water. Guards flanked her, their armor polished to a mirror shine, and hovering shields surrounded them. Even from a distance, Ilior could feel the weight of her presence. She was not just a leader. She was the embodiment of authority and respect, every motion measured, every glance commanding. Yet what surprised Ilior most was how ordinary she seemed in the way she moved among her people. She smiled at a child waving a tiny flag, nodded to a vendor offering a basket of strange, glowing vegetables, and even adjusted her robe to help a small alien who had tripped. In that moment, she was not a queen, not a ruler of a star system, but a being who noticed the world around her. Ilior stepped back, trying not to stare. He had read stories of Queen Sarilith, how she had united several warring planets and brought peace to regions long torn by conflict, but he had never expected to see her in person. Then something happened that made him freeze. Her eyes found his. There was a pause, a fraction of a second in which the noise of the market seemed to vanish. Her gaze was sharp, yet curious, as if she were searching for something familiar. Ilior's heart pounded in his chest. He felt the weight of history, of stories, and of an unknown expectation pressed down on him. The queen took a step closer to him, ignoring the bustling crowd, and her lips moved. He could barely hear it over the marketplace hum. "Wait," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "Are you that person?" Before he could answer, she turned and continued walking, her entourage closing around her like a protective wave. Ilior blinked, unsure whether the moment had really happened. Around him, the market resumed its normal rhythm, but something in him had changed. He had no idea what she meant. Who did she think he was, and why had she stopped for him in a crowd of thousands? For the rest of the day, Ilior wandered the streets of Violia, unable to shake the memory of that gaze. He asked a few vendors about the queen's unusual behavior, but they only shrugged, saying that she often paused for unknown reasons. No one could explain it. By evening, Ilior returned to his modest quarters. The room was small but tidy, with a view of the city's glowing skyline. He placed his satchel on the table and sank into a chair, replaying the moment over and over in his mind. "Are you that person?" he whispered to himself. The words echoed in his mind, and he couldn't help but feel that this question was more than simple curiosity. There was recognition in her voice, a weight he could not yet understand. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime from his communicator. It was a message, encrypted and marked with an official seal he had never seen before. Hesitant, Ilior tapped the screen. "Ilior, the queen wishes to see you. Discreet transport will arrive at dawn." Ilior's hands trembled. Could this really be happening? The queen herself wanted to see him. He read the message again, making sure he had not misread it. But the seal, the precision of the text, left no room for doubt. Sleep came fitfully that night, filled with strange dreams. In them, Ilior saw flashes of history, humans in distant galaxies, helping civilizations in times of crisis. He saw images of brave individuals making impossible choices, saving entire planets from disasters that could have ended civilizations. He awoke with a start, unsure if it had been a dream or something else, perhaps a memory embedded in the human legacy he had never known. At dawn, A sleek transport hovered outside his quarters. Its surface reflected the morning light in a mirror-like shine. A soft voice instructed him to board, and Elior obeyed without hesitation. The interior was luxurious yet functional, designed for comfort and efficiency. The transport hummed silently as it lifted from the ground, gliding through the air above Virelia's busy streets. Elior's mind raced with questions. Why him? What did the Queen see in a human from a distant planet? Was this some kind of test, a reward, or perhaps even a trap? Within the hour, the transport arrived at the Queen's palace. It was a magnificent structure that seemed to float above the planet's surface. Towers of crystal and metal reached toward the sky, and waterfalls of liquid light cascaded down the sides. Elior's breath caught at the sight. A guard approached, bowing slightly. "Welcome, Elior. The Queen awaits you." Elior nodded, his feet carrying him forward almost automatically. The halls were vast, lined with holographic displays showing the history of her people, their struggles, victories, and cultural achievements. Yet, despite the grandeur, there was a sense of warmth, as if the palace itself embraced those who entered. Finally, he was led to a grand chamber. The Queen stood at the center, her robes flowing like liquid silk. When she saw him, her eyes lit up with the same recognition he had noticed in the marketplace. "Elior," she said, her voice gentle yet firm, "it is not often that someone from your species walks into this chamber. I must know, are you truly the one I have heard about?" Elior swallowed hard. I don't know, Your Majesty, I am just me." The Queen studied him for a moment, then smiled, a faint but unmistakable warmth in her gaze. "That may be so, but sometimes just you can be enough to change the course of history." Elior felt a mixture of awe, fear, and curiosity. He had always known humans were capable of extraordinary things, but hearing it from the Queen herself made him realize just how small and important he could be at the same time. "Come," she said, motioning him to follow. "There is much to explain and little time. The galaxy holds challenges you cannot yet imagine, and your presence here is no accident." As he followed the Queen deeper into the palace, Elior felt a strange sense of destiny settling over him. The question she had asked, "Are you that person?" lingered in his mind. Perhaps it was not just about who he was, but about who he could become. The corridors opened into a panoramic view of the planet below. Cities stretched into the distance, connected by glowing pathways and hovering vehicles. Elior realized that the Queen's world, and perhaps the galaxy itself, was far more complex and fragile than he had ever imagined. And yet, somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark of determination. He may have been an ordinary human, but if the Queen believed in him, perhaps it was time to believe in himself too. Outside, the stars twinkled like scattered jewels, hinting at adventures, challenges, and a destiny that awaited him beyond anything he had known. The hum of distant ships, the whisper of alien voices, and the faint glow of the palace lights all combined into a symphony of possibilities. Elior took a deep breath. Whatever lay ahead, he knew this moment. The Queen noticing him, the question asked in a crowded market, was the beginning of something extraordinary. For the first time in his life, he felt that ordinary humans, with their courage, compassion, and ingenuity, might be capable of shaping events far beyond their homeworlds. And so the journey began. Elior followed Queen Serelith through the palace corridors, each step echoing softly against polished floors that shimmered with light from unseen sources. The hallways were wider than any building on his homeworld, their surfaces adorned with holographic displays showing the history of the Queen's people. Battles, alliances, great inventions, all flowed before his eyes in vivid color. "Your Majesty," Elior said cautiously, "I am honored truly, but I am just a human. I am not someone important in galactic history." The Queen paused, turning to face him. Her emerald eyes were filled with calm curiosity, but there was also a seriousness that made Elior's chest tighten. "Elior," she said, "humans are often underestimated. Many species do not realize your potential, but I do. I have watched your kind for centuries, through records, stories, and the legacy left by your ancestors, and now it seems fate has brought one of your kind here in person." Elior's heart skipped a beat. "Fate, but I'm just me. What could my ancestors have done that matters so much?" Queen Serelith's lips curved into a faint, thoughtful smile. "Centuries ago, your people intervened in a crisis that nearly destroyed my world. My ancestors speak of humans as strangers from the stars who appeared at the moment of greatest need, offering aid, knowledge, and courage. They changed the course of history. Many have forgotten, but the records remain. And now, it seems the galaxy calls upon your kind again. Ilior shook his head. I wasn't there, I wasn't part of that, I'm just a traveler, an explorer, I can't do what they did. You may not be them, the Queen said, her voice calm but firm, but you carry their spirit. Humans adapt, humans persevere, humans inspire. And sometimes all it takes is one individual to make the difference again. Ilior swallowed. He had never thought of humans as legendary. On his homeworld, humans were often considered ordinary, even fragile. But hearing it from a ruler of a powerful interstellar civilization made him feel different, responsible, heavy with expectation. The Queen gestured to a nearby platform. They stepped onto it, and it lifted silently, carrying them to a room filled with light and projection. The walls displayed the story of a distant past, when the Queen's ancestors faced a deadly threat, a cosmic storm that threatened to annihilate their colonies. Entire cities were at risk, and communication with neighboring civilizations had failed. Records showed a fleet of strange ships, small, fragile, yet remarkable in design, appearing from nowhere. Human ships. They provided aid, guidance, and knowledge that allowed the Queen's people to survive. Ilior stared at the images, unable to believe what he saw. Your people saved millions, the Queen said softly. And your legacy lives on in stories, in records, in the very way my people remember courage. That is why I stopped when I saw you. Something about you, I sensed the same potential. I sensed the same spirit. Ilior felt a mixture of awe and fear. I don't know if I can live up to that. I'm not like them. I've never led fleets, never saved planets. I've barely traveled beyond a few star systems. The Queen shook her head. Leadership is not always about fleets or power. Sometimes it is about choice, about courage when faced with the impossible, about seeing possibilities where others see walls. That is what humans are capable of, and that is what you may be called to do. Ilior tried to process her words. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, but a spark of determination ignited. Perhaps he had underestimated himself. Perhaps humans were capable of more than he had ever believed. Before he could respond, the Queen's communicator buzzed. She glanced at it and nodded. It seems we have little time, she said. A threat is emerging near my system. The Draxan Horde, a faction known for destruction and conquest, is moving closer. They are large in number, highly organized, and their technology is ruthless. My forces are prepared, but I fear they may underestimate the value of human ingenuity. Ilior frowned. Human ingenuity? I don't even know them. How could I help? The Queen's gaze was steady. You may see solutions where others see only danger. Your people have a history of turning disadvantage into opportunity. That is what I need now. I am asking you not as a ruler, but as someone who believes in the potential of your kind. For a moment, Ilior felt paralyzed. The Draxan Horde, an interstellar threat of immense power. And here he was, an ordinary human, being asked to play a role in defending an entire civilization. Yet deep inside, he felt something stir. A memory not of his own, but of the stories he had grown up hearing. Stories of humans overcoming impossible odds, of courage, creativity, and determination shaping destinies. He realized that perhaps this was his moment, not to emulate the past, but to create a future. I will try, Ilior said finally, his voice steady. I don't know if I can do it, but I will try. The Queen nodded, a small smile touching her lips. That is all I ask. Courage is not the absence of fear, Ilior. Courage is acting despite fear, and sometimes the smallest spark can ignite the greatest change. Over the next hours, the Queen explained the situation in detail. The Draxan Horde was a coalition of systems that believed in conquest over cooperation. Their fleets were massive, their tactics ruthless. They had already subdued several smaller civilizations and were moving steadily toward the Queen's territories. Conventional strategies had slowed them but could not stop them. Ilior listened carefully. His mind raced, imagining possibilities. He thought of human problem-solving, of looking for patterns, of unexpected approaches. Perhaps brute force was not the answer. Perhaps diplomacy, strategy, and understanding the enemy could make a difference. Your ancestors' records are helpful, Ilior said. They show how humans in the past helped with ingenuity, not just power. Maybe we can learn from them and do something similar. The Queen's eyes brightened. Exactly. You may not have fleets of your own, but your perspective, human perspective, could turn the tide. She led him to a room filled with holographic maps, star charts, and data streams. Ilior leaned over, studying the movements of the Draxan fleets. He noticed patterns that others had overlooked. There were weaknesses in their formation, predictable routines, and opportunities for negotiation with factions that had been absorbed into their coalition, but might be persuaded to resist. "This is possible," Ilior murmured. "It won't be easy, but we might be able to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. We could use strategy, not just force." The Queen smiled, a mixture of pride and hope. "You begin to understand why I sought you. Humans see solutions beyond the obvious. You think differently, and that is why your presence here is so significant." As night fell on the palace, Ilior sat quietly, contemplating the weight of the task ahead. He realized that the galaxy's expectations of humans were far higher than he had imagined. But instead of fear, he felt determination. Perhaps humans were not just survivors, they were changers of fate, capable of inspiring civilizations and shaping events in ways no one had predicted. Before leaving the room, the Queen turned to him once more. "Ilior, remember this. You are not alone. You carry the legacy of your kind, and you have allies, even among species who once doubted humans. Trust in your abilities and trust in the goodness you can bring. The galaxy may be vast and dangers may be great, but courage and ingenuity are stronger than fear." Ilior nodded, feeling a mix of humility and readiness. "I will do my best, Your Majesty, I promise." "Good," the Queen said. "Rest now. Tomorrow we begin preparations. And remember, the question I asked in the marketplace, it was not just about the past. It is about the future. You may be the person to change what comes next." As he lay down in his quarters that night, Ilior's mind raced with possibilities. He thought of his ancestors, of the humans who had once changed the course of history for the Queen's people. And he thought of himself, a single human among billions, now standing at the threshold of a challenge unlike any he had faced. For the first time, he felt that humans, ordinary, curious, and determined, might truly have a role in shaping the galaxy. And as he drifted to sleep, he made a quiet promise to himself. He would rise to the challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. Because sometimes being just human was more powerful than anyone could imagine. Ilior awoke to the soft hum of the palace. The sky outside the grand windows glowed with the light of twin suns rising over Virelia's horizon. Today was not a day for sightseeing or learning palace etiquette. Today was the beginning of a challenge he had never imagined, helping a civilization defend itself against a threat unlike any he had faced. He dressed quickly, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. The Queen had briefed him on the Draxan horde, showing him data streams and star maps, but numbers and charts could not fully capture the danger he now had to face. Still, Ilior reminded himself of her words from the night before. Courage is acting despite fear. Sometimes the smallest spark can ignite the greatest change. A guard approached, bowing slightly. "The Queen awaits you in the strategy hall." Ilior followed without hesitation. The hall was vast, filled with holographic displays projecting star systems, fleet positions, and communications channels. Alien commanders from multiple planets were already present, speaking in hurried, clipped tones. Ilior's human eyes scanned the room, taking in the massive scope of the operation. The Queen greeted him, her expression calm but serious. "Ilior, this is where your perspective is most valuable. Observe, listen, and offer what only a human might see." Ilior nodded. He stepped closer to the main projection. The Draxan fleets were immense, their ships arranged in tight formations. The numbers were staggering. Dozens of planets had already fallen. Alien commanders muttered among themselves, debating attack and defense strategies. Many were stuck thinking like their species, following predictable patterns. Ilior hesitated, then asked, "What if we don't fight the way they expect us to?" Heads turned. Some commanders frowned, skeptical. One large alien with blue-scaled skin snorted. "And what would you propose, human? Your species barely survives its own planet's dangers, yet you claim to know strategy for the galaxy." Ilior took a deep breath. "I'm not claiming to know everything. But sometimes, when the enemy expects a certain move, doing something different can give us an advantage. Humans have always adapted to impossible situations. Maybe we can use that." The room fell silent. Even the Queen studied him carefully, her gaze encouraging but patient. "Show us," she said softly. "What would you do?" Ilior stepped forward, touching the holographic map. He traced the paths of the Draxan fleets. Their formation is strong at the front, but look here, he pointed. The outer wings are less defended. They rely on their size and reputation to intimidate smaller systems. If we can create a distraction here and open channels for negotiation, we might reduce casualties while gaining intelligence on their weaknesses. The commanders exchanged glances. One, a tall alien with crystalline limbs, asked, "You suggest diplomacy in the middle of a potential battle?" "Yes," Ilior replied. "We can combine strategy and negotiation. Humans often solve problems with clever approaches, not just force. The enemy doesn't expect it, so it might work in our favor." The Queen's eyes glimmered. "This is why I brought you. You think differently. You see possibilities where others see walls." Plans were formed quickly. Ilior worked alongside alien strategists, suggesting feints, decoys, and communication attempts to splinter the Draxan coalition. He proposed using human-inspired tactics, small teams performing rapid maneuvers, sending subtle signals to confuse enemy sensors, and offering choices to factions within the Horde who might be persuaded to resist. At first, many commanders doubted him. But as the hours passed and Ilior explained his reasoning clearly, they began to listen. The room, once tense and divided, started to hum with focused energy. Humans might be few, but they could be clever. Finally, the fleet prepared to move. Ilior was assigned to oversee the coordination of multiple small strike teams, human-inspired units using agility and strategy rather than raw firepower. His pulse raced as he watched the fleets mobilize. He felt both fear and determination. Failure could mean disaster, yet he reminded himself, courage is not the absence of fear. The battle began near the edge of the Queen's system. The Draxan fleets moved swiftly, their engines glowing like fiery comets in space. Ilior's teams executed precise maneuvers, using small ships to distract and confuse the enemy while the main fleets remained concealed behind nebula clouds. From the strategy platform, Ilior watched as his ideas unfolded. At first, the Draxan forces reacted with confusion. They were prepared for frontal assaults, not unpredictable movements and feints. Some smaller factions within the Horde hesitated, unsure of who to trust. Ilior quickly sent diplomatic messages to these factions, offering alliance or safe passage if they resisted the main Horde. "Human ingenuity," muttered one alien commander in awe. It works." The Queen observed silently, a faint smile on her face. She knew humans could change outcomes not by brute force, but by thinking differently, adapting, and inspiring others. Ilior was proving it in real time. Hours passed, and the battle's tide slowly turned. The Draxan fleets, expecting a straightforward conquest, found themselves outmaneuvered, their forces splintered, and their communications disrupted. Smaller factions defected, either joining the Queen's alliance or retreating to avoid unnecessary conflict. Ilior's heart pounded. Each decision, each suggestion felt like a test not just of strategy, but of human courage and judgment. And yet, as he saw the enemy falter, a sense of pride and hope surged within him. Humans, ordinary beings from a small blue planet, could make a difference in a galaxy of giants. At one critical moment, a massive Draxan warship broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for one of the Queen's key stations. Ilior noticed a small pattern in the ship's movement. It relied on a repeated scanning rhythm, predictable yet fast. He directed a small team to exploit this rhythm, luring the ship into a trap without causing destruction. The plan worked perfectly. The warship was neutralized with minimal damage, and the Queen's forces were safe. Alien commanders looked at Ilior with newfound respect. Humans, they realized, could not only survive, but thrive in situations that demanded creativity and courage. As the battle drew to a close, the Draxan forces retreated, their morale shattered and their plans disrupted. Ilior's strategies had turned what could have been a catastrophic attack into a victory, not just for the Queen's people, but for the reputation of humanity across the stars. The Queen called Ilior to her side. "You see," she said softly, "humans are underestimated not because they are weak, but because others cannot imagine their capacity for courage, innovation, and determination. Today, you have proven why the galaxy must take notice." Ilior exhaled, exhausted but exhilarated. I didn't do it alone. The fleets, your people, they all worked together. I just suggested some ideas." "Suggestions inspired by human ingenuity," the Queen replied. "And sometimes that is all it takes." A spark of insight, the courage to act, and the willingness to stand for what is right. Today, you have shown that humans can indeed shape history. Ilior looked out the window of the strategy platform, watching the stars twinkle after the battle. Ships from multiple civilizations returned to their stations, moving in harmony, their alliances strengthened by the unexpected human contribution. He realized that the galaxy was not just about power or technology. It was about creativity, courage, and the ability to unite different beings toward a common goal. That night, Ilior returned to his quarters. Exhausted, he sank onto the soft bed, replaying the day's events in his mind. He thought of the Draxan horde, of the fleets, and of the alien commanders who had doubted him at first but now looked at him with respect. He realized that humans, often considered small and insignificant, could inspire trust, hope, and change even in the face of overwhelming odds. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The Queen's message appeared on his communicator. Ilior, today you proved that humans are more than stories, but the galaxy is vast and challenges are endless. Rest now. Tomorrow we begin preparing for what comes next. The question you carry is no longer just about recognition, it is about legacy. Ilior smiled faintly. He understood now that being recognized by the Queen was not merely about his past or his ancestors. It was about what he, as a human, could do in the present. Humans had always adapted, always found solutions where others saw only obstacles. And now, in this galaxy full of unknown dangers, he would continue to prove that courage, intelligence, and determination were far more powerful than anyone could imagine. He lay back, looking at the ceiling as if it were the endless stars above his home planet. He felt small yet capable, ordinary yet extraordinary, and he knew deep in his heart that this was only the beginning. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, but today they had shown their worth. And tomorrow, the galaxy would learn even more. Ilior drifted to sleep, dreaming of star fleets, alien allies, and endless possibilities. For the first time, he truly believed that humans, no matter how small or fragile they seemed, could rise to meet challenges that no one else could. The spark of human courage, he realized, was enough to illuminate even the darkest corners of the galaxy. The morning air of Virelia's palace was crisp and filled with the scent of exotic flowers carried from distant planets. Ilior stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city below, replaying the events of the previous day in his mind. The battle against the Draxan horde had been won, but the Queen had made it clear that the challenge was far from over. Ilior. He turned at the sound of the Queen's voice. She approached with her usual grace, her eyes shining with quiet determination. Today, she continued, we will test another aspect of your abilities, not just strategy or courage, but diplomacy. Some factions within the Draxan horde remain undecided, torn between loyalty to conquest and the possibility of peace. Your task is to persuade them to resist aggression and work with us. Ilior's heart skipped a beat. Diplomacy was different from battle strategy. It required words, understanding, and the ability to appeal to others' reasoning and emotions. He had never considered himself a diplomat, but the Queen's confidence in him sparked a sense of purpose. I'll do my best, Ilior said. That is all I ask, the Queen replied. Remember, humans have a unique quality. You inspire trust and hope where others see only fear and conflict. Use that. He was guided to a communications hub, a vast room filled with holographic terminals, alien aids, and displays of distant star systems. A large map projected the scattered Draxan factions, showing clusters of ships isolated from the main fleet. Ilior leaned over the map, studying the patterns carefully. These factions are hesitant, said one alien aide. They could be swayed, but they are suspicious of outsiders. Ilior nodded. Exactly. That's where humans have an advantage. We can appeal to logic, emotion, and trust in ways that other species might not expect. We don't rely only on intimidation or technology. We can show them an alternative path. Hours passed as Ilior composed messages, using the Queen's network to reach out to leaders of the undecided factions. He carefully crafted each communication, mixing clarity, honesty, and subtle reassurance. He explained the consequences of continued aggression, highlighting opportunities for cooperation, trade, and mutual benefit. He appealed to their self-interest, but also to the broader idea that the galaxy could thrive if violence was minimized. When the first responses arrived, Ilior analyzed them carefully. Some factions were resistant, their leaders aggressive and proud. Others were more open, curious about the potential for alliance or neutrality. Ilior realized that each message needed to be customized. There was no one-size-fits-all approach. He worked tirelessly, adjusting words, offering data, and most importantly, appealing to the reasoning and values of each faction. Slowly, responses began to shift. A small fleet in the Outer Rim sent a message. "We will hold our fire and consider your proposal." Ilior felt a surge of hope. One faction at a time, the tide was changing. Humans had always been known for their adaptability, and now he saw it in action. It was not brute force, but careful thought, empathy, and logic that swayed decisions. As the day progressed, Ilior received a communication from the Draxan commander who had been the most aggressive in his faction. The message was curt and full of suspicion. Ilior studied it carefully. He understood that this leader would not respond to conventional persuasion. He needed a different approach, one that combined honesty, courage, and creativity. He drafted a message that acknowledged the commander's strength and intelligence, expressed respect for his people, and offered a solution that would preserve their honor while avoiding needless destruction. It was risky. If misinterpreted, it could trigger retaliation. But Ilior knew humans often succeeded in situations others deemed impossible because they were willing to take calculated risks. The response took hours, each passing minute stretching Ilior's patience. Finally, the holographic display flickered, showing the commander's message. "We will hold. We will consider the offer of peace." Ilior's heart leapt. He had done it. One of the most aggressive factions had paused, opening the door for diplomacy. The queen observed silently, her expression one of satisfaction. "You see," she said softly, "humans do not rely solely on strength or fear. You create possibilities through understanding, courage, and reason. That is why you were sought. That is why you were recognized in the marketplace. The galaxy underestimated humans, and yet here you stand, changing its course." Ilior felt a mixture of pride and humility. The queen's words reminded him that humans had always been underestimated, but their greatest strength lay in the ability to adapt, to reason, and to inspire trust. The communications hub buzzed with activity as more factions sent tentative replies. Some requested negotiations in person, others agreed to coordinate movements to avoid unnecessary conflict. Ilior guided these interactions, always emphasizing collaboration over coercion, patience over aggression. By the end of the day, several Draxan factions had committed to neutrality, and some even pledged to assist in the defense of weaker systems threatened by rogue elements. Ilior had turned the situation from one of inevitable conflict to a growing network of alliances, all because he had dared to think differently. The queen led him to a quiet observation deck. Below, fleets moved in coordinated patterns, showing signs of order, unity, and restraint. Alien commanders glanced at Ilior with respect, realizing that human ingenuity had not only won a battle, but had also reshaped the political landscape of the region. "You have done more than I imagined," the queen said. "Humans are remarkable not because of size or power, but because of creativity, courage, and moral insight. You embody the legacy of your species, Ilior, and now you have created a foundation for lasting peace." Ilior felt a deep sense of satisfaction, but also awareness of the responsibility still ahead. The Draxan horde had not vanished entirely. Rogue elements still posed a threat, and beyond them the galaxy remained vast, filled with challenges, uncertainties, and opportunities. I never thought humans could make such a difference," Ilior admitted. "I always felt small, insignificant," the queen smiled. "And yet the smallest spark can ignite the greatest change. You are not alone, and you are not limited by expectations. Today, humans have shown that courage, insight, and collaboration can reshape the future. Never forget that." That evening, Ilior returned to his quarters, his mind alive with reflection. He thought of the battles fought and the alliances formed, of the courage required to speak honestly to alien leaders, and of the ingenuity needed to turn hesitation into cooperation. He realized that the strength of humans lay not in physical might, but in their ability to think, to reason, and to inspire others. As he prepared for rest, Ilior considered the queen's words and the events of the past days. He understood that humans were no longer just observers in the galaxy. They were participants, shapers of destiny, and sources of hope for civilizations that had once underestimated them. For the first time, Ilior felt a profound connection to the legacy of his species. Humans had traveled far, faced countless dangers, and yet had always persevered through intelligence, courage, and compassion. Now he carried that legacy forward, proving that even one human could make a difference among stars. Outside the palace, the twin suns set, casting warm light across Virelia's gleaming towers. Ilior gazed out at the horizon, imagining the endless possibilities ahead. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown challenges and opportunities, and he felt ready to meet them. He knew the Draxan horde was only one of many potential threats, but he also knew that humans, curious, adaptable, and courageous, would always find ways to rise above. And in that knowledge, he found peace, determination, and hope. As he drifted to sleep, the stars outside seemed to twinkle in encouragement, as if the galaxy itself recognized the spark of human ingenuity now shining brightly. Ilior understood that this spark, small but persistent, could illuminate even the darkest reaches of space, and perhaps, just perhaps, it could change the course of history itself. The day dawned bright over Virelia, the twin suns reflecting off the palace towers like molten gold. Ilior stood in the main strategy chamber, reviewing the final preparations for the decisive mission. The Draxan horde, though weakened by recent diplomacy and strategic setbacks, remained a significant threat. Rogue fleets still roamed the edges of the system, and their unpredictable attacks could destabilize entire colonies if not handled carefully. Queen Serelith entered the chamber, her presence commanding yet serene. "Ilior, today we face the ultimate test. It is not only about fleets, battles, or negotiations. It is about uniting disparate civilizations, showing that courage and intelligence can triumph where fear and aggression dominate." Ilior nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He remembered the words that had carried him through the past days. Humans could inspire hope, think differently, and act courageously even in impossible situations. Today, he would put all of that into practice. "Our plan is multi-layered," the Queen continued. "The remaining Draxan factions are isolated and wary. Your task is to coordinate a combined approach of diplomacy, strategic deployment, and targeted actions to neutralize their threat without unnecessary loss of life. Are you ready?" Ilior took a deep breath. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Let's do this." The first stage of the plan involved sending out careful messages to the remaining factions. Ilior personally oversaw the communications, tailoring each message to the leader's personality, past behavior, and values. Honesty, respect, and the promise of mutual benefit were key. The responses trickled in slowly at first, but then they began to shift. Leaders who had once been aggressive now considered the possibility of neutrality or cooperation. "This is remarkable," said an alien commander, watching the messages update in real time. "You understand them in ways we could not. Humans truly are different." Ilior smiled faintly. "Different, yes, but different can be an advantage." As the diplomatic efforts unfolded, the second stage of the plan went into action: strategic maneuvers. The Queen's fleets, guided by Ilior's insights, executed complex formations designed to protect vulnerable colonies while appearing smaller and less organized than they actually were. This was intentional. By appearing vulnerable, they encouraged the rogue Draxan fleets to attack predictably, allowing the combined forces to respond with precision. Ilior coordinated small strike teams inspired by human ingenuity. Using agility, speed, and unpredictability, these teams distracted enemy ships, severed supply lines, and created opportunities for isolated Draxan units to consider negotiation. The approach was calculated, careful, and effective. Hours passed in tense coordination. Every decision was critical, every communication a test. Ilior felt the pressure, but also a growing confidence. Humans had always thrived in moments where creativity and courage mattered more than size or power. Now, he saw that principle in action on a galactic scale. Then came the critical moment. The largest remaining Draxan fleet, commanded by the leader who had once been most aggressive, advanced toward a key colony. Ilior studied the fleet's pattern and noticed something: a subtle, repeated movement in their formation, almost like a rhythm. He realized it could be exploited. "Teams Alpha and Beta," he called over the communicator, "use the rhythm to anticipate their moves. Draw them into the open near the nebula fields. The rest of the fleet will position for a coordinated containment, Avoid destruction if possible. Our goal is to neutralize, not annihilate. The plan was risky. If miscalculated, it could lead to disaster. But Elior's calm, logical approach guided the teams. Using precision maneuvers, feints, and synchronized movements, the Draxan fleet was drawn exactly where he intended. And then the unexpected happened. One of the rogue factions, swayed by his earlier diplomatic messages, moved to block the path, joining forces with the Queen's fleet. Elior felt a surge of triumph. The Draxan fleet was now trapped, not by brute force, but by coordination, strategy, and human ingenuity. The commander sent a message requesting negotiation. Elior, with guidance from the Queen, responded immediately, offering terms that allowed the rogue fleet to preserve honor while ending aggression. After tense hours of discussion, the Draxan commander agreed. His fleet would withdraw, and future cooperation or neutrality would be honored. Elior watched as the final confirmation messages appeared on the display. One by one, the last hostile elements either retreated or agreed to peaceful terms. The Queen turned to Elior, her expression radiant. Elior, today you have done more than any single human has done in history. You have united civilizations, neutralized threats, and inspired hope. The galaxy will remember this day, and your role in it. Elior felt a mix of relief, pride, and humility. He realized that humans, often seen as small and insignificant, could indeed shape galactic events not through overwhelming power, but through courage, intelligence, and compassion. A council of alien leaders convened in the palace later that evening. They formally recognized Elior's contributions, praising his ingenuity, leadership, and the human qualities that had turned the tide of conflict. Aliens of all shapes and sizes spoke of their admiration. Humans could inspire trust, find solutions where others saw none, and act decisively when others hesitated. You see, the Queen said to Elior, standing beside him, humans are more than history books or old stories. You have shown that courage, creativity, and moral clarity can achieve what fleets alone cannot. This is why I sought you, why I recognized you in the marketplace, and why your actions will echo across the stars. Elior felt a warmth in his chest. For so long, humans had been underestimated, even by themselves. Yet here he stood, proof that one human could influence the galaxy. He realized that being human was not a limitation, it was an advantage. That night, Elior walked on the palace terrace, looking at the stars scattered across the sky like glittering jewels. He thought of home, of Earth, and of the countless humans who had never left their planet but whose spirit of ingenuity and courage had shaped civilizations long before him. He felt connected to them, to their past, and to their potential future. The Queen joined him, silent at first, watching the constellations. Then she spoke, her voice soft but full of meaning. Elior, you have fulfilled the promise I sensed in you. Humanity is no longer underestimated. You have reminded the galaxy and yourselves what your kind can achieve. Remember this day, for it is the beginning of a new era. Elior nodded, humbled and inspired. Thank you, Your Majesty. I understand now. Humans may be ordinary in appearance, but our spirit, courage, and creativity make us extraordinary. And if even one human can make a difference in this vast galaxy, then imagine what many humans could do together. The Queen smiled, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. And that, Elior, is exactly what I hope the galaxy will come to see. Days later, as fleets returned to their home systems and peace settled over the previously threatened colonies, Elior reflected on the journey. He had come to Violia as an ordinary human, unknown and underestimated. He had faced a galactic threat, coordinated strategy, diplomacy, and human ingenuity, and emerged victorious, not through power, but through creativity, courage, and understanding. He realized that humans were not just survivors of a single planet. They were changers of destiny, capable of inspiring others and shaping events on a scale unimaginable. The galaxy had learned to respect humans, but more importantly, humans had learned to respect themselves. In the quiet of the palace, Elior received one final message from the Queen. Elior, the galaxy has seen what humans can do. You have proven your legacy, and your actions will inspire generations. But remember, this is only the beginning. The stars are vast, challenges are endless, and your kind's potential is limitless. Elior smiled, gazing once more at the stars. He thought of Earth, of humans across the galaxy, and of the countless possibilities that lay ahead. He understood that being human was not about size, strength, or technology. It was about courage, creativity, determination, and the ability to inspire hope. And as he looked out at the endless cosmos, he felt a quiet certainty. Humans, underestimated though they may be, would continue to shine brightly among the stars. They would explore, create, inspire, and rise to every challenge. One spark of human ingenuity, one act of courage could change the galaxy. And Elior had been that spark.